You're listening to AZ Sports with Matt and Rich. Welcome back to AZ Sports with Matt and Rich. This is episode 3. My name is Rich. This is my co-host, Matt. You can see he's added on to the collection there in the background. He's got another one. Actually, he's got two. We'll talk about that shortly. But on this week's podcast, we have a little bit of news. The Suns finally broke the franchise record for most wins in a single season. Also, we got a nice little jab at LeBron with them eliminating the Lakers. That was a great game. The Rattlers remain undefeated. We have some hockey news with some of the college prospects and what's going on with them. The Dbacks, we have the home opener with Seth Beer hitting the walk-off home run. And, the Cardinals, we don't care about them. So they're going to go on the ignore list. You got anything else you want to say here real quick, Matt?
Oh, no, nothing. I just like how, unlike this in the radio, we actually get to say we don't care about the Cardinals and talk about some real sports. Come on now.
Some real football. So with the real football, let's hop right into Rattlers talk. They remain undefeated so far this season. I'm curious, did they go undefeated last season too?
No, last year I think they lost one of their first 4 or 5. I think the season was actually a 2-3 or 3-2 at one point. Excuse me. I'll have to double check that later. They did lose a couple of games early. It was 2019. They went 14-0 and went all the way to the United Bowl to lose by 3. So they do have an undefeated season under their belt. I would prefer them to not go undefeated again because they didn't get the job done last time they did it.
I gotta say, I am curious to know those total losses in the regular season for the Rattlers in those past 2 or 3 seasons, because, man, it's got to be no more than, 6 maybe? Or no, less than that, because you said they went undefeated in 2019. So, that's 3 losses in regulation in, the past 3 years? That's crazy to think about.
It's dominant, but they do need to get that championship, because you can't keep teasing your fans with greatness and then losing in the championship game. So we're going to praise them as much as we can going into the regular season, but they still got to get the job done in the United Bowl this year.
Talking about teams that need to get the job done, let's talk about the Suns. They finally break the franchise record for most wins in a single season. And was that the game that they beat the Lakers as well?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Yeah, the game they beat the Lakers, the one that they did that. And the fact that not only did LeBron James not play, but AD got to play, and AD is the one that they got away with one. Well, I guess the Suns got away with, 4 this season? And now, after that game, they won another game on my birthday on the 8th against Utah. They got 64 of them, so that they got away with 64 wins this year, apparently. I know, crazy. What a fluke of a franchise going on right now. But it was so fun to get to watch with the bits of that game I was watching, because, man, I love watching the Lakers lose. LeBron James and AD were just talking trash all year, and they're all geriatrics that can't stay healthy. We're here for the rising sun, I suppose.
Yeah, that's a great analogy, and it's perfect example of why you don't let LeBron James be your general manager as well as your main player on the court, because what a great way to lose. You lose to the team that you talked so much trash to. If you looked at all the reports at the beginning of the season, they all had the Lakers over the Suns, even though the Suns had been to the finale, the previous season. It was oh man, how much more of a I'm gonna say a proverbial circle jerk that was for the Lakers. And great to see that ending by the hands of the Suns. I am my brain is fried. So that was a rough one getting out.
Remember, the Suns got away with one, but the Lakers couldn't even make the play-in tournament. But they're going to win the championship. They were the favorites going in. I don't know. For me, it's the same thing with like the Nets. Everyone was hyping them up. But of course, Kyrie and Durant, you're always going to have great performances when they play together. Key when they play together. It's when you have guys that team up that cannot stay on the court consistently, you're not necessarily going to be guaranteed a championship. And I think the last few years have really shown that because who picked Milwaukee winning the championship last year going into it? Who picked the Suns going to the finals and then being the best team this year? No one. Well, Suns fans, sure, I'll give you your credit there, but yeah, no one. In the actual league around, the Suns are supposed to be like 4 or 5, maybe 3.
They keep rolling. They're, I think, still resting players, so they've lost a couple recently, but it is what it is. When you're up, however many wins they are, rest guys, make sure they're ready to go for the playoffs. That's pretty much all I have to say about that.
I can go ahead and extend off of that. I like how they were trying to keep as much momentum as possible. You keep the starters in for as long as you possibly can. You give them days off on the second end of back-to-backs. I remember that game against, the Clippers. They only managed, I think it was 30-some-odd points in the first half or something like that, and they made this huge comeback in the second half to come within, I think, 8 points. They still lost the game, but that was pretty good, showing how solid that depth really is on the team. But kept them together, let them maintain momentum and all that. Now, I don't mind resting guys. Let Mikal Bridges extend his Iron Man streak, play him a few minutes, whatever. But I think the team has shown when they play together cohesively, they're fine. They're rolling. I wouldn't mind them sitting out. I think it's tonight or tomorrow at home against Sacramento. It's the last game of the year. But very briefly, that game on my birthday on the 8th and in Utah, the fact that they were down 17 points in the fourth quarter and came back to win, I think they won by 6 or 7 points. Ridiculous. Utah had something to prove. Utah had something to play for. Phoenix has nothing to play for. I think it's what they're 64th, because 63 is what got them the record against the Lakers. They have nothing left to play for except for, I guess, just to have some fun out there and make this even more unobtainable for a future Suns team to break that win streak or that win record.
Yeah.
We just say this team is still the best in the West, despite the fact they've lost a couple of games. Not really in market. People were freaking out. Yeah, maybe a little bit, sure, whatever. But it's outside of market. Oh, the Suns are frauds. They're showing their frauds. I'm like, dude, how? Like, they were resting starters. Guys are getting back from injury. They broke the record. They don't really care anymore. Clearly, they want to go to the playoffs. Even Booker was saying, I think back in November, like, it's pretty much we're in playoff mode. We're just looking to the playoffs. Now we're here. Let's see how this goes.
Yeah, you can definitely tell that they're having fun out there. It's big smiles, lots of fun. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Mikhail who was getting picked up by, I don't remember what player it was, who stuck his tongue out.
He started smacking his butt.
Yeah. So you could tell they're just having fun out there. They're having a good time, and that's what you want to see. Like, you want to take it light right now. You're in the regular season. This isn't the time to be super serious mode, and it's always great to see. Especially a comeback like that. That was crazy.
I think we got some D-backs right now, right?
Yeah, I was about to say. All right, I think you need to show off a little bit more of your addiction back there.
So.
Make sure to explain them well, because some people might not have video.
All right, so on my birthday on the 8th, I've said it 3 times. I'm 26 years old now, by the way. Thanks, Rattlers and Suns, for winning and Coyotes for not playing, because I wouldn't have liked to see 2 losses that night. So I'm at the D-backs game because I needed a Seth Beer jersey. The main reason I ended up going is because they gave out free beers. I don't like beer. I don't like Coors Light, but I was kind of memeing with my wife. My wife took me dead seriously, so she bought tickets. We ended up going to the game instead of seeing Sonic 2 again. Whatever, I'll see that again later. So walk in, we buy this nice jersey behind me, which I'll get to in a minute, but it's going to take 2.5 hours, 2 hours, whatever it was to make. So we're walking around killing time, and I see this, like, authentic shop, whatever, off to the side, like actual team-issued stuff. And I saw the jersey they wore when I was growing up, this nostalgic Sedona red when they first switched over. I think a separate Richard, not you, said it's the baby backs, but I don't know if that's an actual thing that the fans dubbed it. But I love the simplicity. I love the little DB, the little DB snake on the sleeve. I love this look, and I really wish they would bring this back for a game or two a season. I'm not asking full time, 1 or 2 games. So $75. I was not gonna not leave Chase Field without this. And then Seth Beer in the background right there. The dude hit a walk-off home run on National Beer Day. I didn't think we were going to get the free beers, by the way, but no one was sitting upstairs where we were. We were sitting all the way in row 40 because I like sitting as high as they'll possibly let me. And my wife did that for me on my birthday, so appreciate that. Thank you. So I needed to go for that. I needed to have my free beer. I pretended to chug it because it was still kind of disgusting. A little less so this time, so the whole acquired taste thing, maybe there's something to it. But had a little bit of beer, ate some food, watched the Dbacks lose, kind of standard for a Dbacks fan, but yeah, a couple more jerseys in the collection, and I am ecstatic because now my brother-in-law are going to be mobbing around with Seth Beer jerseys wherever the hell we go, baseball related.
There you go. Did you try any of the new food options there that we were talking about last week, or?
No, I went upstairs. They had a Streets to New York, and the pizza was super stale. My dad always says don't eat at Chase Field. I don't want to get too deep into why, but he knows people that work there, and he's like, oh, it's not that sanitary. But I'm like, everything seems fine enough to me because it's cheap. The cheapest food in the entire league. And I had a hot dog. The hot dog's actually better than the pizza. So it might sound weird. Go get the worthless wiener. That's an in joke if you're subscribed to my channel for a long time. But go get the worthless wiener. It's a pretty good price for a decent hot dog.
All right, worthless wiener. I like that one. All right. Before we get into hockey talk, we got some news about the Cardinals, and the news is that we don't care. So
yeah.
So I gotta say, that's a real rough one to talk about, but yeah, we don't care. Everybody talks about the Cardinals 24/7 here in Arizona, and until they do something, instead of just folding like a cheap suit every single time they have a season that's somewhat successful, yeah, we're going to prefer not to talk about them because there's more important football out there with the Rattlers. So
we won 67-20 in Vegas on my birthday, by the way. I needed to put the score out there. We forgot to mention it later. 67-20. They were up 60-20, and Kyrie Woods jumped over the boards to catch an interception, and then they still scored on that drive. I think there was like less than a minute left. They didn't need to score. They were just being mean at that point. But I loved it because you got to go in there. And as someone who, after the Marc-Andre Fleury thing, hates Vegas, it's really sweet to watch an Arizona team whoop Vegas. But I do want to very briefly talk about, I want to use this as a segue because the amount of oversaturation of the Cardinals in this market. One of the main reasons I started doing AZ Sports Guy back in 2018, Peralta was having a phenomenal all-star level season, and I think it was Burns and Gambo. I forget the specific show. It was probably Doug and Wolf, but throughout the day at some point, and I'm like, maybe they're going to talk about David Peralta and the D-backs. They were still on a playoff hunt. It was 2018. The team was not bad. It's kind of painfully mediocre. Like I said, Peralta was playing phenomenally. They were talking about Cardinals training camp and who's going to be the third string lineman. And that team sucked. The 2018 Cardinals did not deserve any coverage. I cover the Coyotes, and this year they suck. The Cardinals were even worse that year. All right, they did not deserve the coverage. But when David Peralta was having an all-star season, you don't even talk about him. Anytime I'm listening to the radio, Seth Beer hit that home run, and I'm driving around at work delivering parts, and they're talking about they're doing like their draft combine crap, their draft profiles, and it's 3 weeks away, and they've been doing this for 2.5 weeks. It's Arizona sports. It is not NFL and NFL accessories. It's Arizona sports, and I don't know why you're not talking about everything else we could talk about. They don't talk about the Rising. They don't even mention the Roadrunners. They're attached to the Coyotes. They should be mentioned despite the fact they're in Tucson. You don't talk about ASU hockey. I don't think they've ever mentioned ASU hockey besides maybe Josh Stone once or twice, and I don't even remember which show that would have been. You don't hear anything about any other sports unless they need to talk about it is the Phoenix Suns right now because they're as dominant as I guarantee the Suns were not as dominant this year as they are. If they were just good, they would barely get the coverage they're getting. And it's the Cardinals are trash. I hope they relocate. I'm tired of hearing about that stupid team.
Ooh.
Cover something else. You want to talk about football? Undefeated team down there in the Footprint Center. Just saying. Thank you for letting me rant.
I feel like we're going through schizophrenia here. We're going to be talking about the Rattlers every week and how much more entertaining they are than the Cardinals. But we're going to keep saying it until you watch your first Rattlers game. Go watch them. They're free.
Free on YouTube, by the way, on the IFL YouTube channel. All right. It is free to watch. I was watching it in the gift shop while I was waiting for this to get made. I was watching them destroy Vegas. And that play by Kyrie Woods, like I said, phenomenal. Chef's kiss. Great. Watch that. It's infinitely more entertaining than anything the Cardinals did last year. And they were the number one team in the league like 3/5 of the way through it. Sorry. I still got a lot of pent-up aggression on this.
I'm gonna show off my cup real quick because I feel like a lot of people don't. They're gonna see it and they're gonna go, "What the heck is that?" So it says pilots looking down on people since 1903. So I know that's it looks weird with just like a plane and then a city skyline. You're like, what the heck is that cup? I don't know. Every time I look at it, I'm like, it's a little weird, but I like it. I'm a big plane guy. I like planes, so you know, you're a dinosaur guy. You like dinosaurs. I like planes. I'm one of those losers who walk around with like the 80-year-old men in the World War II exhibits for planes. So
you want to know what a loser I am? If someone talks about Spinosaurus as it was represented in like Jurassic Park 3, I spaz out because that's not what Spinosaurus was like at all. Then again, it's also changed fundamentally like 16 times in the last 2 years because science is like that apparently. But it did not hunt like the T-Rex. It was more like a crocodile. It spent more of its life like in the water. If you really want to know what Spinosaurus is like. Anyway, I mentioned the Tucson Roadrunners. Let's talk about them for just a minute, if that. Colin Theisen, former Arizona Sun Devil hockey player. This season was his first and last year at the team. 35 games, 19 goals, 23 assists, 42 points. One of the better players on the team. I remember him and Donor were kind of the more entertaining players to pay attention to. He actually signed with the Tucson Roadrunners, and in 8 games so far, 3 goals, 3 assists for 6 points. Considering how just disastrous it's been for Tucson this year, that's one of the lone bright spots. I would not mind if Arizona gave him a look, signed like a 1 or 2 year contract, and just kind of saw what he can do in like training camp next year. I would like that very much. I don't know if that would happen, but I think he's playing well enough to get a look.
With how many people they're going to be losing in the offseason, you need people who want to play for the organization. I mean, let's not sugarcoat it. It is going to be a little bit harder to get people to come to a market like this right now, not having a building. I think that it's not nearly as bad as what people say, like, oh, they're not going to be able to get anyone. Like, no, there's jobs here, there's money here. People are still going to come. They don't care whether it's a losing season or not. They still want to make, close to $1 million. And guess what? Being in Arizona, that state tax is a lot cheaper than being in Montreal, where you lose almost half your paycheck to taxes. So I definitely think that it's going to be more desirable than people think. But at the same time, I think Colin Theisen, isn't he from Arizona? I could be wrong on that, but I know.
I don't know if he is, but I know he played in ASU. He played for Notre Dame before that.
Okay, maybe not then. I know at the very least he played for ASU. Obviously, he must like it here because he signed. I think it was a PTO. I don't think it was like a contract or anything like that. It was just a PTO. So I don't know if he'll be able to be called up. Maybe not.
Arizona would have to actually sign him because the AHL. I think it's because they have like unlimited rosters because they never talk about the injuries. You have to actually like talk to reporters with the team to know like when guys get injured. Even someone that tries to follow them like I do, I can't keep up with injuries. the Tucson themselves, the AHL can actually sign their own contract. So even if it was a PTO, he probably got signed just for the remainder of the year. The Coyotes themselves would have to sign him to an actual contract for them in order to call him up. So it would be a thing where they'd probably look at him in the offseason, maybe a PTO for the training camp, maybe offer him a 1 or 2 year deal. That would be a two-way contract, but I would not mind that at all. I want that out there. I'm trying to put that into existence. If anyone with the Coyotes ever listens to me, I know my voice is terrible to listen to right now. I apologize. But if you take anything away, number one, Rattlers football is elite. Number two, Colin Theisen as an Arizona Coyote would not be bad.
Yeah, and I think he's definitely showing it. Now, there's a lot to say that, it's the end of the season. It's garbage time. Let's be honest. When you're on a team that's not going to the playoffs, you play a lot harder and you play for points. You play for dignity. We saw that. We've seen that way too many seasons with the Coyotes. I go back to the PTSD moments of the first year of Rick Tocchet era where they lost, 14, 15 games in a row. And then, by the end of that season, Antti Raanta had a .930 save percentage and they were winning every game to make sure that they didn't draft Rasmus Dahlin. But it is what it is. But that just shows you people play during garbage time. They don't care. They're professionals. They're not going to pack it up and, think about their golf clubs and where they're going to be golfing that season. They're still going to be trying. And I do think that could be the case as well with Colin. Not saying that, he's thinking about golf or anything like that. I just think hey, you're just signed with, the AHL. You're going to be going full force, but can you keep that full force up for a full season? But he's definitely proved that he can play in the AHL. 6 points. I don't know if you said the stats or not. He has 6 points in 8 games, 3 goals, 3 assists. That's good. That's really good. Speaking of injuries down there, I don't know if we ever discussed it, but Liam Kirk, who was injured early on, I don't think they ever disclosed his injury either. And that's a guy Liam Kirk, who was born and raised in Great Britain, one of the first players to play in the NHL, or sorry, not in the NHL, play professional hockey in North America from Great Britain, was Liam Kirk. And I could see him being a line mate with Colin maybe next season if they do sign Colin.
I don't remember what the injury was, but surprisingly, the Coyotes disclosed it. Not the Roadrunners, the Coyotes, because he underwent a successful surgery, but they did say it was a season-ending thing, and I think it was a month into the season. He'd only played a handful of games. He hadn't played very much, which sucked because it wasn't because of the hype or anything, but you could see that he was he earned his way to that contract. He earned his way to get that look from the Coyotes, put him in Tucson, and the fact that his season was immediately just derailed. It sucks. It's really unfortunate when that happens. Hopefully, it's been long enough that I don't know when he starts skating again. He might have already started skating again. You skate before you come back. I know that's how that works, but
yeah,
he should be back next year. I hope to see his explosiveness at training camp again because depending on how things go, they also could just give him a Coyote spot next year. Not a guarantee. All depends on how guys bounce back. But especially with the talent that's going to be leaving, you might see something like that because it's the Wild West on this roster. To me, anything in the top 9 is up for grabs because if a kid comes up and they're playing well, I think Yan Yannick might make a spot. Matthias Michelli's probably going to steal a spot. He's played well. He's pitted out in points, but he's still passing the puck well. I think he might end up taking a spot. Michael Carcone might end up getting an actual Coyotes contract extension, and then it might make a roster spot. This roster is going to look different. It's going to be fun. Yeah. It's going to be weird. I don't think it's going to be as jarring as last year to this year, but it's going to look different.
Looking at their cap hit, the only thing that worries me about that is all those guys are great and fun, but they make little to no money. They are going to need to pull money in somehow, whether that's monopoly money in taking on dead contracts. That could be the case, but at the same time, you don't want to permanently damage your team forever with using that monopoly money. I know at the trade deadline, it was talked about potentially them bringing in the Shea Weber contract from Montreal. That could be an option as well to bring in them more of that fake money to get you to the cap floor. I don't know. We'll see. GM Bill Armstrong has shown that he is a smart man, so I trust him full-heartedly at the helm. But also at the same time, it's a lot easier to demo the house than it is to rebuild it. So, he's got to prove that he knows what he's doing with building as well.
You could always just do what I do when I'm lazy, because I always sell off all the expensive players to have rookies and just sign a random guy for $10 million a season.
He could pull in
I have
like
on my roster and then it's 22. Give him a 1 year, $10 million contract.
He could pull in the real deal James Neal for like $8 million.
There you go. Bring back Peter Mueller. I bought a jersey. He's not even here. You're telling me people wouldn't buy a meme jersey? Screw it. Bring him back. Bring Mikhail Bodker back. Get some plates and Martin Hansel's back and bring him back for $5 million for a year. I'll take it. Give me back that line.
Just put a Terminator spine back in him.
Real quick before we move on, just in case I did forget to mention that statistic by Seth Beer, the first rookie in MLB history to hit a walk-off home run while trailing on opening day. Very oddly specific, but that's why we got the free beers. That's why I wanted a Seth Beer jersey when we first got it, but that justified the purchase. And just wanted to make sure I did say that before we moved on a little bit more. I was thinking about that the last 2 minutes.
Yeah, that's a great little quirky stat. I don't know if you did say it. I don't think you did, but if you did, then yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
We gotta celebrate it. I should have bought a Coors or something just to like throw a beer in the background right now just to celebrate. But I don't like drinking pea water. I prefer to just drink actual water, I guess.
Yeah, beer is not my cup of beer.
So anyway, you mentioned these rookies. You mentioned you didn't mention it by name, but Nathan Smith. We do have something to talk about with I believe it's a press conference scheduled for Monday. I know Craig Morgan was reporting on something scheduled for Monday.
Yes, I believe so. So that's good news because, a lot of people were like, oh, why would he want to play here? Blah, 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 blah. There's typical narrative that we hear about literally everything Coyotes related. Oh, they're building they're building a playground for the children in the kindergarten. Yeah, but where are they going to play? Are they going to play in the cafeteria in the school? No,
I love that analogy. It's actually a pretty solid analogy.
Yeah, every single time. But it just shows you, they're pulling people in. They're getting looks from these college students. Nathan Smith went all the way to the finale in the Frozen Four. They ended up losing. I think it was pretty handily, like 5-1 to Denver. But he had a pretty good tourney. He had a game winner in the previous game where they won 1-0. And, overall, he had a pretty good season with Minnesota State. I think it's the Mavericks. I think Mavericks? I don't remember. Minnesota State.
Like a bull as their logo. So
yeah. I don't remember. Minnesota State, and he had 50 points in 38 games. 19 of those were goals, 31 were assists. He was in nomination for the Hobie Baker, which is like the MVP of the NCAA hockey. So didn't end up winning it. I think that went to another Mick name. I think that was McKay who won it. But yeah, he had a good season. He's going to come in, play a couple games for the Coyotes right before the end of the season. We are desperate for centers. That is, when you have Christian Fisher as one of your centers, that's not good.
We have Christian Fisher playing. That's not good. But yeah, no, playing as center is even worse. But there was some good news. I don't remember if Tournier said that he's on this trip. I think they said he did. Jack McBain is pretty close to making his debut for the Coyotes, and I think they said if he doesn't play on this trip, he should play when they come back home. So we're gonna get to see some Jack McBain. I'm pretty excited for that. Who do you pair him with though? I'm assuming maybe Michelli maybe Schmaltz, because Schmaltz they keep bringing between center and wing. I liked him better at the wing last year. This year I think he's made some improvements at center, so I don't really care where you put him. But who do you think they're gonna pair McBain and Smith with, or do you think they throw Smith and McBain on the same line?
I'll get to that in just a second. Sorry, I just had like a total epiphany. I think that McBain would be incredible with Lawson Krause. I know you talking about McBain. I was like, I think Lawson Krause is out with a hand injury for the rest of the season. But I was just like, wow, actually that would be a really good pairing, McBain and Krause. But for where he's going to play coming in the next couple of games, I think so. I think he's going to play probably on that first line. I think Barrett Hayton has looked good the past couple of games. Hasn't really hit the score sheet, but he's definitely around the net, causing havoc, trying to make plays. So that's good to see.
It's funny that he finally got one goal for all. He probably should have another 5 or 6 with his effort. But the one he got was that weird shot where he like left his feet last night against Vegas. It was a setup from Cody over to him, and it's just like they posted it on Twitter. It's like caption this, and it's just the dumbest picture, but it's great.
Yeah, I think if I had to guess, because that line that you were just talking about, Hayden, Carcone, and Schmaltz ended up scoring against Vegas. If I had to guess, he'd probably be on line 2 with probably Nick Ritchie and Matthias Michelli on the other side. If I had to guess, but we don't know, because Nathan Smith could be ready to go, right? So what if we saw a line? I don't remember what stick hands the two players are. We could see a line where it's just like, hey, you two are playing together, and whatever draw, if you're opposite stick hands, I could be wrong. They might be the same stick hand, but if they're opposite stick hands, it's like, hey, you take the strong draw and you take the other strong draw. We see that sometimes with other teams. I want to say I'm drawing a blank on teams, but it's like a common thing, like if you're in one circle, then that player will take the draw, and if you're in this circle, that player will take the draw. I mean, just to give an example would be, I think Schmaltz and Boyd did that for a little bit this season, and we could see the same thing.
Boyd's not injured, is he?
No, but he has been a fucking... Sorry, pardon my French. He has been completely irrelevant ever since signing that contract, unfortunately.
Well, I think it was the day or the game, not the first game when he signed it. It was the game after that he scored a goal. But ever since, I just want to make the point, ever since Keller got injured, I really feel like Boyd, you don't really feel his presence anymore. Like Boyd worked, like the reason Boyd's worth that contract, he might even be worth a little bit more, per year, is because you pair him with Keller, and him and Keller have such great chemistry. That's why Boyd has all that value, in my opinion, because he's the perfect guy for that perfect situation. Not taking anything away from him, but you take away Clayton Keller, and it really feels like he just stopped existing. So it's one of those things that you point out where some guys work so well together, like Domi and Duclair. You don't separate them because the flawed philosophy there was we need to spread around goals. Well, that's the only productive line, You don't want to have nothing now because it's already spread too thin. Anyway, that was just another one of those little side tangents. But yeah, it's a really important thing to show people that might not be familiar just how important like chemistry is. Like line chemistry is so ridiculously important because some guys can work perfect here or there. Nick Ritchie didn't work in Toronto. He's been great in Arizona. Next year, I wouldn't mind a contract extension. Keep Ritchie here. I want to see him kind of as part of the core going forward.
He's got one more year.
He's got next year. So next year, extend him. Yeah. Like I wouldn't mind like another 3 years. I don't know what the money would be, but I wouldn't mind giving him another 3 years next year when he's eligible for an extension.
I don't know about 3 years because the thing is he is a big boy, and those big boys break down real quick. I mean, obviously you got nobody to pay anyways, But the only thing that worries me about that is those big boys. If they're a little bit older, which Richie's a little bit older, he's not super old. I don't think. I think he's 26 or 27.
So that 3 years would take him right till about 30, 31. To me, that's the cap for those kind of players. Like, take him to that. That's probably going to be his last, like, really productive year. And then avoid any further risk. Take anything else 1 year at a time. That's just my philosophy on it because Milan Lucic was one of the better forwards in the league, like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, a little bit more, and then just died because that power forward play style. Not everyone could be Keith Tkachuk, and even then, Keith Tkachuk started to break down a little bit towards the very, very end of his career. I think he had more longevity than most of the power forwards, though, because that position just doesn't have the longevity hockey wise.
No, it definitely doesn't. It breaks your body down, throwing hits all the time.
Is there anything else Coyotes related?
I don't think so. I think that's all the Coyotes news we have. They have lost 5-1, 3 games in a row now. So we are finishing it out strong, making sure that we have the best chances available to, allow Bettman's magical little
contract extension just to be like, hey, your numbers are gonna suck for the rest of the year. Just go out there, have fun, and you get paid. You get paid money next year and the next 2 years.
I mean, I don't know if they said that to him, but you could tell, like, after each of these games, man, like he's dropping F-bombs left and right. I think he cares a lot, even though he is not on a successful team. I hope he doesn't get too bummed out about it.
As long as he doesn't pull a Brizgalov and start like breaking sticks. Which, I mean, Brizzy was kind of funny, but Karel Vejmelka's got a little more of that like gentlemanly charm about him. So don't break sticks. Just say fuck bombs a couple of times and you're fine.
Yeah. Excuse me. No, I think that's pretty much it hockey related. I'm trying to push all the data out of my brain right now, and it is just like the wires are just like not connecting. So it's just like zap, zap, zap. Come on, connect wires.
This is my time to shine then, since we're wrapping it up for the night. Let's go ahead and just find a random topic, give it about no more than 5 minutes, and we'll use that to sign off. So, with the Tucson Roadrunners, what do you think has been like the biggest change in them? Because for the most part, I remember when Jay Verity used to be the head coach down there. I think now he's the power play coach for the Coyotes. He's one of the assistant coaches because they promoted him a couple of years ago. Do you think that was like the big thing that took away a lot of Tucson's success? Because I think his coaching really kind of worked with those younger players, which you're also seeing some of it translate, I guess, with the Coyotes.
So actually, I believe Jerry Verity is back down there. So the reason why he was up with the Coyotes was because of the COVID bubble or the COVID protocols. So they had like they called it the taxi squad, and essentially he was like also part of the taxi squad. But I think he's back down there again, coaching as head coach. I'm fairly confident on that. Yeah, I'm fairly confident on that. But I do like Jay Verity as a coach. I think the problem has been that he had over half of his roster stolen from him from opening lineup. I'd say that
last 5 years. Oh my God, yes, his roster's been just stolen.
Yeah, like it's not even the past 5 years. It's like the past 5 games. Like, not being a little hyperbolic there, but like since opening night, he's lost at least 4 or 5 D-man down in the minor leagues. He's lost, Prosvetov going up and down constantly, not constantly, but quite a few times.
Got called up and down, I think once or twice in that stretch because some guys were banged up, so they weren't sure if they were going to beat him. So.
Yeah, his top 6 has been stolen from him. Matthias Michelli was a point-a-game player. He was player of the month, I think, a couple of times down in the A. Like, yeah, he's just had a lot of people stolen from him because there's no solidity up top in the NHL. I really do chalk it up to that. It's hard, when you're getting a bunch of randoms from the ECHL that you're just like, all right, it's your turn to go out there and win for us. You know, it's hard. So I'd definitely say that's probably what's going on down in Tucson and why they don't have much success. I'm a little shocked that Soderstrom has gotten so looked off, I guess you would say, in his opportunities to make the big club.
I think the biggest reason for that, and I had some frustrations with that too, I was criticizing it to start the year, is I want to say it was beginning of this year when Kevin Bianco was getting scratched because he wasn't willing to shoot. Like, he lost a lot of his confidence in that shooting ability. So Soderstrom was like, oh yeah, I would just shoot the puck. It was either late last year, early this year, I forget which specifically. But his attitude was, I would just shoot the puck. And the first couple of games he was doing that. I'm like, okay, this kid's got confidence. Full disclosure, with Cap being like my favorite player on the team, that's gonna rub me the wrong way. So there's just that bit of disclosure. But if you're gonna back it up, I have no problem with trash talk. I love when guys back up trash talk because it makes it infinitely more entertaining. Then he just stopped. I forget which game, but one day it just like a switch, and he didn't want to shoot. Defensively in Tucson, not so much in the NHL, but in Tucson, I got to watch him a couple of times. He's getting better. He's a little more sound, a little more solid defensively. I think he's making smarter decisions. But when he was playing, when I was watching him down there, he was shying away from shooting more. When he would have open lanes, he would cycle the puck and pass it more. And I don't know, it's a very Rick Tocchet thing for a young defenseman that's offensive-minded to just stop shooting. And I have no idea what happened there. Then he got injured. I think he missed, 12 games or a little more than that? He missed some time. But, yeah, no, something is up with that kid offensively, and he might end up degrading all the way down to he could go as low as like a bottom-pairing defensive defenseman, which that would still have a role and a spot in the NHL. But what they drafted him to be was a puck-moving, right-handed shot defenseman that you can also put on a power play if you need to. You can put out there for offensive situations. And that's, look, considering the fact that I'm very heavily critical of John Chaika, it took a while for me to even like the dude. And then after how everything ended, it makes it easier to hate him again. Considering the fact that we wasted draft assets to move up to get him, and we could have had Cole Caulfield, I look at that like we need scoring. Imagine a line with Garland and Caulfield. That could have been something pretty good in the desert. So that also could factor into me being more critical of Soderstrom. I'll also disclose that, but just he has regressed offensively to a degree that I don't know what's going on. Now, it's also been a little while since I got to watch anything Tucson. I've been ridiculously busy for at least the last handful of weeks. He could be getting better in that regard, but everything I saw very consistently was shying away from the offense. And to me, that might end up hurting some of his chances to make the roster, because if you're going to bring the kid up, you want that offense. If you don't have the offense, we'll just keep a veteran up that's going to make fewer defensive mistakes, which then takes away from Soderstrom's opportunity to adjust to the NHL game. Look what happened to Kyle Capabianco. You can't have guys in the minors too long, because sometimes Michael Buntings happen. Sometimes Connor Garland got up at the right time. I think Lane Peterson played best NHL hockey in Arizona, not in San Jose. So it can work sometimes, but you can only learn so much down there. And the game is so much faster in the NHL. That very much could start to stunt it out. Now, he could have a phenomenal training camp, come back up next year and play well. It all depends. But right now, he might be trailing more towards just being a defensive defenseman, which I wouldn't mind having another Zbigniew McCulloch, I guess, but that's not what they drafted him to be.
No, that is definitely not what they drafted him to be. They drafted him to be like a Victor Hedman light. That was the goal for him. Not a Norris caliber Victor Hedman, but a, light version of Hedman. And he has not shown much progression this year. Once again, could be that, you're losing a lot of people, a lot of shuffling, a lot of jumbling. Does not help. That is probably one of the worst things you can do if you're trying to make your rookies more successful, is constantly cannibalizing your minor league team. It's really hard to get the ball rolling down there if you're constantly doing that. But at the same time, we also do have seven picks coming in the next year. So that definitely will help restock the cupboards. It just shows you how barren it is down there.
I think one more thing is I said it at the time when they drafted him. They very clearly drafted Soderstrom to play with OEL. Like there was a lot of similarities in play style. You can tell they wanted that to be your top pairing that also had the offensive upside, and then Chick is your second pairing. Which if OEL did not stunt out so much offensively and defensively, I think that would have been fine for the core moving forward. I wouldn't have minded that being a playoff, top three on your defense. The problem was how much regression you saw out of OEL. But now that you take away OEL, that seemed like the main reason you get Soderstrom. You want him to play with OEL. I mean, you could probably have him play with Chikrin, I guess, but I don't think the play styles would mesh quite as well, if really at all. So you take away like a huge variable. Why do you say so?
So I thought the same thing with Alex Goligoski because Soderstrom and Goligoski are kind of similar. And I was like, there's no way this Goligoski-Chikrin pairing was going to work at all. Like, this is going to be, a mess. And it actually worked out really well. And then on top of that, you having a Soderstrom who's right-handed instead of left-handed, meaning that it's a lot easier to play the boards. So the reason why it's so important to have same pairing hands, to have the correct pairing hands on the defensive side. I'm going to teach the game here real quick. Is you have your rink, right? You have the boards on each side. You want your stick towards the boards because it's more ideal to be able to throw passes across to your D-man. So if you're in the offensive zone and let's say the puck's coming around the boards, you want to be able to grab it and then just rip it over to your other D-man across the blue line. And when you're in the opposite hand, now the puck's coming down the boards. You have to reach over with your backhand and then try to make a backhand pass, which is a lot harder. Don't get me wrong. NHL guys are very skilled. They can make backhand passes. They can make saucer backhand passes, which is, I can't make a backhand pass accurately. But having the correct stick hand is so important, and him being kind of a Goligoski similarly type player. He's not as veteranized as Goose was. I could see it working.
As much as Goose did.
What'd you say?
He also doesn't turn the puck over as much as Goose did. I like Goose, especially in like 2018, 2019, 2020. I feel like he turned the puck over a lot.
Yeah.
One other addition, like one other really good benefit, is you can also switch off and then have a more natural slap shot, like one-timer setup. So that way the right-handed shot switches over to the left side, and vice versa, and just you can snipe it if you try to cycle around and set up. So it adds some versatility.
Yeah.
So the defensive, the maintaining possession, like you were mentioning, because that is. If you're a lefty on the right side, you gotta either backhand, like you said, or try to grab the puck and twist your body. That's extra time that someone can get to you, hit the puck off your stick, hit you into the boards. You lost possession right there. So yeah, that's really important. So I mean, it could still work. I just don't know, especially with how much of the offensive spark that's left Soderstrom to this current point. I just don't know if it would work. Maybe, like I said, on a third pairing, he should be fine. Maybe him and JJ Moser, I think, would actually be really good because Soderstrom getting better defensively. JJ Moser's very, very mature, very defensively responsible, and showed a surprising, bit of defensive scoring. Not a lot. He's not an offensive defenseman. Maybe puck moving, if you want to call him that, but he's mostly defensively responsible. I think that could be an interesting third line, third pairing, maybe second pairing, depending on where you're putting Chick. Because Chick should be first pairing, but sometimes they bump him down, they bump him back up. Second, third pairing should be fine.
Yeah. What do you think about him with Ghost? Too much of a glass cannon?
The thing is, same thing with Kessel going into this year, I don't see Ghost being on the team next year. So it's like, well, I think if I get my mindset into, okay, he's on the team, he'll be playing here for a while, that could work because Ghost also has experience bouncing back from poor offensive seasons. And as a veteran, as someone he's still got it. He's played so much better this year than anyone thought he was going to. I'm not going to say elite, but he's a very good offensive defenseman right now. Who's also surprisingly defensively responsible for what I was expecting. I think that actually could be a good pairing to kind of bring Soderstrom where you want him to be because you'd have that veteran presence there to kind of help him along.
Yeah, I saw a really, really interesting stat. This is really sad. I don't know if it's still the same case, but it was like a couple weeks ago. Shane Gostisbehere, who the Philadelphia Flyers traded away for future considerations. They traded Gostisbehere and a second to Arizona to just get him off the team because they waived him a year or two back and nobody picked him up. So they literally paid the price to get him out. He has more points in Arizona than all of the defensemen in Philadelphia combined. All of the defensemen that they picked up this year combined. And they picked up like 4 or 5 D-men. That is crazy to think. One guy.
Former Coyotes legend, Keith Yandel, former Sabres legend, Rasmus Dahlin they picked up, or was it? No, Ristolainen.
Ristolainen, yes. Yeah. They also picked up,
that is ridiculous.
They also picked up Ekholm, or was it the other guy from Nashville?
It might have been Ekholm. I think he's in Philadelphia now. But regardless, the fact that Gostisbehere, like I said, better than I expected. But my reaction to the trade, first I was hearing Capobianco might have been involved, which as soon as I heard that, I was like, no. Like, this trade can go burn in a fire. I still think Capobianco could still be a top 6 defenseman. He's just kind of stalled out a little bit, but then when I found out they're trading him essentially for nothing, they got Ghost and a second for, it's probably going to be like a 7th round pick, 6th round pick. That's all future considerations. It usually ends up being maybe a lower prospect. I wouldn't mind Christian Fischer being future considerations, but that's just me. But the fact that they got him for nothing and he's been essentially a light version of what we were expecting Chychrun to be this year. And he's been kind of our offensive engine on the defensive side. Yeah, no, I think we won that trade in a fleece.
Yeah. Well, and then also, too, if you flip him, I don't think he'll go in the offseason this year. I think he'll go at the deadline next year. I think that's where you'll see the most value for him, especially because you're going to open 2 of your retainment slots back up so you can even retain on him. I definitely see I can definitely see a late first being picked up for Gostisbehere by some team looking to add depth on their blue line.
You know what? If he plays the way he has this year, if his numbers are similar at the deadline and you have a team that would have the cap space, I don't think that sounds unreasonable. But he would have to play as well as he's playing this year. If you see any regression, it'd probably be a 2nd or 3rd. Because someone would be like, oh, the contract or whatever. Somebody would say something like that. So I think if he does play as well, if not a little better, yeah, I could see a late. It would be like a 25th or later, but I could see a late first.
Yeah, for sure. It would not be like some playoff hopeful team. Definitely not. But like a team that is kind of guaranteed to go in the playoffs that wants to add some more blue line depth. I've got an example. I now granted they did add Lindholm, which helps. Like a Boston, maybe next year they want to add a little bit more blue line depth. You got lefty, Gostisbehere, and if he's on the same numbers and then you retain 50% again, remember, the cap space is still going to be rough next year. It's only going up by $1 million. That is still going to be an area of contention for teams next year. And if you retain 50% on a guy who's expiring, I think his contract goes from like $4 million to $2 million. And he's putting up like 40 points, 50 points, like a $2 million guy at the trade deadline for that can produce 40, 50 points a season, like I could see that going for a first. I actually, as I think about it, I don't think Boston has their first anymore because I think they gave it up for the Lindholm deal. But a team like that,
Minnesota, because they're gonna have no cap space for like 8 years. God, that was one of the most bizarre things to buy out both Parise and Suter. It's like, yeah, I get it. They wanted the cap space. They wanted to change the locker room culture. I mean, cap space for this year, not in the future. They wanted cap relief this year. They wanted to bring back Kaprizov, but man, like if you think about cap hit, like and cap hells, the Minnesota Wild in the next 2 years could have a roster like the Coyotes, a lot of young guys, because they need to. Except for they're trying to get below the cap ceiling.
Yeah, they are going to be struggling. They're going to be paying, what is it, an eighth of their cap to players that aren't even on their team. Like, just think about that. An eighth of your cap is being paid to players that aren't even suiting up for you. That is crazy.
Imagine paying an eighth of your employees to just not come to work. Like you're like not even not to come to work, to work for someone else. You're like, I will pay you. Go, let's say it's Walmart. Go work for Target. I'll still pay you if you just go work for Target.
Yep. That's a rough place for Minnesota, and good. Screw them. They're a divisional rival now.
The only division rival I got a soft spot for is St. Louis. Although I did get one more jersey, I'll show it to you. I'll send you like a picture or whatever on Twitter. I got a new Winnipeg Jets jersey. It's this beautiful purple practice Atlanta Thrashers jersey. And it's funny. I was so happy for Jets fans to get their team back. I was sad for Atlanta fans. I've always had a soft spot for the Thrashers. But the amount of toxicity I've been exposed to of Jets fans that are still salty and still hate the Coyotes. Whenever I cover the Coyotes and Jets, I always cover it as the Coyotes and Thrashers. And I'm going to start putting that jersey in the background when I cover them.
Good. They should not be able to retire players that are from our franchise. That is some total BS.
I wouldn't mind them finding some sort of agreement where anyone that played for both the Coyotes and Jets, the Coyotes keep, anything else goes back to Winnipeg. But because of how, lack of a better term, dickish their fans are towards Coyotes fans, I think we should just hold it hostage because screw them.
Yep.
Just because how they treat us.
Yep. We don't care at all about those records, like literally at all. We don't even bring them up here in Arizona, but because those fans are so dickish, I'll just be nice with my wording. No, they deserve it. Screw them. Keep them.
And that's where we're gonna end this note. Screw the Winnipeg Thrashers fans.
Yes, go back to Manitoba, eh? Get out of my state. I'm tired of having to drive behind Manitobans who are going 5 under. This is Arizona. Every lane is the NASCAR lane. What?
It's only 5 under for you? I've seen them in their campers going like 10, 15 under on freeways.
the great Canada, oh Canada, except 10% of their population flees to the Sun Belt every winter.
And you know what? It's funny. I think that's why Canadian fans are so upset about the Tempe Arena. They won't be able to afford to go to games anymore. And they won't be able to afford to keep our poverty franchise afloat, so they're mad about it.
The other cringy one I heard, the lifeblood of the NHL, the Canadians market. Okay.
Anyway, I think that's a great note. I think that's a great note to say screw Canadian hockey fans.
The volatility of your money is awful. There's a reason your video games cost 80 Canadian dollars now, okay? Screw you.
You know comic books, how they have a U.S. price and a Canada price, or books where the Canada price is like or sometimes as much as like $10 more. That's being
Yeah.
a little hyperbolic, but still, yeah, no, that's the reason why Colorado got a team, Arizona got a team. That's the reason why they wanted to keep a team in Atlanta, is because the strength of the
Yep.
American dollar. You can
Yep.
chalk it up to whatever you want, but that's a discussion for smarter people. I just know I like making fun of Canadians because they won't
Yep.
stop. Like, the Coyotes live rent free, and they won't stop like annoying me with their presence on Coyotes social media.
Yep. Screw them. All right, we're gonna end it there. Giving an ode to O Canada, and we had quite a few topics here for this week. Some fun stuff. I'm excited that D-back season is back underway, and the Suns are rolling into the playoffs quite nicely. Aside from that, hear no evil, say no evil, speak no evil, Cardinals.